and welcome to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. I'm Louisa Britton, your top stories on Thursday the 27th of July. Tunbridge Wells pensions bosses say multi-million-pound office space and theatre is on.
The debate revealed a divide in the Cabinet, with one councillor describing the theatre's potential benefit for the disabled community, while another called it a vanity project.
Could there be a hosepipe ban on the way? As water levels drop, experts say Kent needs to do more to save water.
It does make it more challenging if you've got, high hot summers. You've got lots of evaporation happening from the water levels here and usage at the same time.
And why Kent's amateur beekeepers could hold the key to sustaining the species.
If there weren't any bees, we wouldn't die, but we would have a very boring diet. It would only be crops that are wind pollinated.
And in sport, I'll be looking ahead to tonight's T20 Blast contest for Kent against Somerset.
Plans to build a £72 million complex in the centre of Tunbridge Wells will continue, despite concerns raised at a council meeting last night. A petition against the proposal, signed by more than 2,000 people, was discussed in front of a packed council chamber. Opponents believe the plans could damage Calverley grounds for good. Our reporter Cameron Tucker was there.
Dozens lined up in the pouring rain outside Tunbridge Wells Town Hall last night. Why? A £72 million facelift could see a state-of-the-art commercial and government office complex and 1,200-seat theatre take centre stage in the town. Voices of opposition have been growing, however, due to the impact such a project would have on the Calverley grounds. 1,000 metres of park space could be cut into as part of the development. Inside Town Hall, the gallery, fortunate enough to get seats, witnessed what some council workers called the most significant and hotly debated issue in recent times. Up first to speak were members of the public, including petition organiser Chris Gedge, who thanked the petition's 2,000 signatories for their support. In a passionate plea to the council to reconsider the project, he said that as an economist, both financial and environmental factors had not been fully taken into account. Living next to the grounds, he added he did not want his children spending the first years of their lives on a building site. Friends of Calverley Grounds chairman Nick Pope was next up. Having been at the forefront of the campaign against the development since the beginning, Mr Pope recalled the start of the public consultation back in 2015, though he believed this had never been with the intention of gathering residents' thoughts. Instead, he feels certain councillors have been presenting their vision for the complex, taking no notice of critics. Other members of the public to speak out in opposition included theatre director Ben van Grooten, who said the size of the development would make it commercially naive. Opposition to the proposals from the public and within the council was directed primarily at council leader David Dukes and councillor Tracy Moore, who's previously spoken on KMTV in support of the project.
In fact, there's less than a 2% encroachment to Calverley grounds with this project. The buildings will be built primarily on existing car parks, and we are looking to improve the public space between the two buildings, a wider, more welcoming entrance into Calverley grounds.
The debate revealed a divide in the Cabinet, with one councillor describing the theatre's potential benefit for the disabled community, while another called it a vanity project. A motion was eventually carried through with 38 votes to see the current phase of development continue. Councillors and members of the public from across both sides of the aisle seem to be in agreement about reinvigorating Tunbridge Wells, but the development site and cost still remain a thorny subject. Cameron Tucker, KMTV, Tunbridge Wells.
A gang from Kent will spend decades behind bars after one of the biggest drug operations in the UK was uncovered in the county. The men have been sentenced today alongside 9 others at the Old Bailey. Andy Richard reports.
5 men from Kent have been sent to prison for a combined total of nearly 35 years for their involvement in a string of cannabis farms which had an annual street value of more than £50 million. It's the biggest ever conspiracy to grow the drug in the UK, with farms dotted around Kent and Norfolk from 2013 to 2015. Mastermind Michael Edward Corcoran, Christopher Marsh, Stephen Macy, Damon Mills, Michael J. Corcoran, all from Kent, have gone to prison.
I think this shows that Kent Police are committed to tackling the highest level of organised criminality, whether or not it be the highest member of the OCG making the maximum profit, whether or not those people who are involved in the actual manufacture and building of the cannabis factories would also be dealt with robustly.
The farms were uncovered after there were reports of a burglary at one of the units in Rochester. That's when police found the plants growing, which led them to find the rest of the farms, including 3 in Gravesend. All of the warehouses were similar, 2 stories high, with the same equipment inside. The gang, which had 10 other members from different parts of the UK, grew the drug on an industrial scale. More than 16,000 cannabis plants were seized from the 7 sites.
It's the sheer scale. It's not unusual for the media to report that we've uncovered cannabis factories before, maybe 100 or maybe 200 plants. But the sheer scale being over 16,000 takes it to a different echelon of organised criminality.
The gang will now serve their time behind bars for one of the biggest drug operations this country has ever seen. This is Andy Richards for KMTV.
Tributes have been left at Herne Bay train station where a 16-year-old girl was found dead near the train tracks. Police believe Taya Peebles was electrocuted, but they're appealing for witnesses to come forward. Her body was discovered yesterday morning. She'd last been seen at 11 o'clock on Tuesday night with friends. Josie Hannett's been at the scene.
Train services at Herne Bay have gone back to normal today, and commuters have been looking at the touching tributes left for 16-year-old Taya Peebles, who was found dead yesterday morning. Now, as you can see, the British Transport Police remain at the scene today. Anyone with information can come here and tell them what they know, or if they saw anything that they think police should know about. As you can imagine, there's been family members and friends coming here to give tributes. It's been a very emotional and traumatic time for them. They want to know why she was on the tracks and what time this happened. It's believed she was seen on Tuesday night here at around 11 o'clock, but she wasn't found until 7 the next morning. There's been posts about her all over social media, and one tribute read on flowers here today said that she was the life of Herne Bay. Around 10 police cars and ambulance were present at the scene yesterday. Obviously that has been scaled back down now, but they still are appealing for information. They're not sure when she got onto the train tracks or why she was there. So if you know anything, contact police. This is Josie Hannett in Herne Bay for KMTV.
There will be no hosepipe ban in Kent this summer. That's despite a reservoir being at its lowest level for more than a decade for this time of year. A hot and dry start to 2017 has meant that Bewl Water reservoir in Tunbridge Wells is now less than half full. Harry Pete has more.
Bewl Water is the southeast's biggest reservoir and can hold 31,000 megalitres of water. That's 54,550,000 pints of water. But after a dry start to the year, the reservoir is only half full. So as a county, are we doing enough to keep our water topped up?
We have probably the best what we call per capita consumption, the amount of water we all use every day. The average for the country is 150 litres per person per day. I'm pleased to say in this part of the world it's around about 133 litres per person per day. So actually it's very, very good, and we've found our customers have responded to the efforts that we've been making to cut our consumption.
Could we see a hosepipe ban come into place this summer?
Currently we're saying that if we had another dry winter, this is the key thing for us, then next year we might have to start introducing some measures. This year we'll be absolutely fine.
Now, it may not look like it from the rainy weather that we've had recently, but it's been one of the driest starts to the year on record in the county, meaning that reservoir levels, river water levels and groundwater levels have been lower than expected. So what are the top tips to make sure that your taps stay running throughout the summer?
You know, if you've got a garden with lots of exposed earth, put some garden mulch down. That holds more of the moisture in the soil. If you've got a combi boiler, when you turn on the hot tap, it takes a while to get warm. Put a jug by there so that you can collect that water by the side of the sink, and then you can use that on your plants afterwards. It's just simple things. Think about using water more effectively. This is not going to affect your life at all. Could save you about £78 a year on your energy and water bills.
And it's not just the regular homeowner that has to watch their water usage. Farms make up a large portion of businesses in the county, and they also use up a lot of water. But new government plans to reward farms that are environmentally friendly could go a long way to save even more water. Last week, an East Malling farm announced they had developed technology that would reduce their water usage by 20%, but still improve the yield.
We can put sensors into the crop, and we know that the plant is going to be much more efficient at taking water out, and we can monitor when the plant wants water rather than when we think the plant wants water. So it's almost like getting the plant to tell us when we need an irrigation event.
Southern Water say they too are also working with farms to ensure water stays stable.
Those that are producing sort of salad crops and those kind of things are very understand the importance of preserving water, so they're actually looking at their own agricultural usage, and they're putting in their own small reservoirs on their land, for example.
So a summer hosepipe ban looks to have been avoided for this summer, but with another potential dry winter on the way, the more water we save now could keep the taps flowing next year. Harry Pete for KMTV.
Now let's have a quick look at the weather. It's going to be another clear evening across Kent with lows of 14 in Chatham. Waking up on Friday, you should see sunshine across most of the county with highs of 19 degrees in Chatham and Canterbury. Into the afternoon, and it should get even hotter with temperatures rising to 24 degrees as the sun tries to pierce through the clouds in Canterbury, Ashford and Tunbridge Wells. After the break, why beekeepers across Kent could help save the species as numbers drop. Don't go away.
If there weren't any bees, we wouldn't die, but we would have a very boring diet. It would only be crops that are wind pollinated.
Borough councillors in Tunbridge Wells have voted to push on with planning for a state-of-the-art office and theatre complex in the town centre, with 38 votes for, 5 against and 5 abstentions on the motion to continue planning. It's a victory for those behind the £72 million proposals. But there was clearly vocal opposition, with members of the public worried with the project's cost and potential damage to Calverley ground. Cameron Tucker has this report.
Dozens lined up in the pouring rain outside Tunbridge Wells Town Hall last night. Why? A £72 million facelift could see a state-of-the-art commercial and government office complex and 1,200-seat theatre take centre stage in the town. Voices of opposition have been growing, however, due to the impact such a project would have on the Calverley grounds. 1,000 metres of park space could be cut into as part of the development. Inside Town Hall, the gallery, fortunate enough to get seats, witnessed what some council workers called the most significant and hotly debated issue in recent times. The debate revealed a divide in the cabinet, with one councillor describing the theatre's potential benefit for the disabled community, while another called it a vanity project.
With news of how some Kent-based players have helped England's wheelchair rugby league side reach the World Cup finals and an injury scare for the Stones, here's Keelan with the sport.
First tonight, Maidstone United's defensive issues have been complicated further by an injury to Magnus Okengai, with the new season just a little more than a week away. The defender missed both of the Stones friendlies this week with a swollen knee after falling awkwardly in training, and is now a doubt for next Saturday's curtain raiser against promoted Maidenhead. It means that Kevin Locko is currently Maidstone's only fit centre half. Maidstone manager Jay Saunders has been after another defender all summer and remains in talks with Football League clubs about a possible loan signing. In cricket, Kent are hoping to get back to winning ways in the T20 Blast tonight when they host Somerset at Canterbury. The Spitfires are hoping New Zealand fast bowler Adam Milne is fit enough to play after missing out on the last few games due to injury. Mitch Claydon could be the man to make way if Milne is past fit, despite his impressive death bowling during the tie with Sussex. It's expected Callum Haggart will keep his place after 2 good performances, with Imran Kayun and James Treadwell battling it out to be Matt Walker's spin option. Kent are currently 7th in the table with 5 points from 6 games. Somerset, meanwhile, lie 5th with 6 points, having had 2 games washed out due to rain. Play gets underway at 7 o'clock. To rugby now, and Gillingham's Joe Coyd has helped England reach the Wheelchair Rugby League World Cup final. Here are the 2 tries that Coyd scored for the Three Lions as they defeated Australia 78-36 in their semi-final on Tuesday. It means they'll take on hosts and holders France in the final, which will take place in Perpignan tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. England are very much underdogs though, having lost to France in the opening group stage game of the tournament. Despite that, Coyd is optimistic they can come home with the trophy.
Yeah, very good game. Really brought us to us. A lot of determination, a lot of grit from the Aussies. Played some good rugby out as well. So it turned out to be a really good semi-final here. Well, whenever we play France, it's always a good game. I don't think we've ever played France and had a bad game. So France in France would be amazing. I'm sure if we're down to Perpignan and then to get a win, hopefully it will be even better.
That's all we sport for now. I'll have more for you later on in the programme.
Next tonight, why Kent's amateur beekeepers could hold the key to sustaining the species. The population's under threat after years of steady decline, but there's new hope for the future thanks to local intervention. The number of bees in the UK has fallen over the years, and although people have been able to maintain honeybee hives and keep their population relatively steady, the number of wild bees has fallen dramatically. According to the British Beekeeping Association, wild bees are nearly extinct in the UK. But it's often thanks to people taking up beekeeping as a hobby that honeybees are still around in large numbers and are able to keep pollinating where wild bees can't. Here there are 4 colonies of honeybees, and there are thousands of hives across the county with people taking beekeeping up as a hobby. Now they're doing this because it's crucially important for the environment as they help the pollination for farming and fruit production. Leslie Fancott lives in Hartley and has been keeping bees for 40 years.
It's hobby beekeepers really who are keeping the honeybee going because they're managed, but certainly a lot of the wild bees and the solitary bees have declined. Particularly noticeable this year. If there weren't any bees, we wouldn't die, but we would have a very boring diet. It would only be crops that are wind pollinated, which would reduce us to things like grasses and rice, and we wouldn't have the variety we have now. Bees need the pollen is like protein to them, and they need a variety of pollen. They need good nectar sources, and also with woodlands aren't managed like they used to be, so the trees grow up and then they can't get to the woodland floor for the woodland plants.
But it's not just their natural habitat which is changing. Bees are facing other threats as new dangerous species make it to the UK.
We've had a lot of pest threats that have come from Asia, particularly the varroa mite, which we've had to cope with because our bees have no natural resistance to it. So we've had that. We have to control that because it weakens hives and makes them susceptible to viruses which could potentially kill them.
Over the last decade, the number of beekeepers has gone up, and it's thanks to them that bees are able to continue to play their vital part in our food production. Louisa Britton, KMTV, Hartley. Well, Terry Clare and Bob Smith are from Kent branches of the Beekeepers Association and join me now. So, Terry, how endangered are bees?
All the bees, different species across the board, are under pressure throughout the world, and they are in this country. Bumbles and solitary bees especially. Honeybees, because of beekeepers, have made a great fight back, and the number of beekeepers now in England are increasing quite rapidly, and British beekeepers alone, registered beekeepers, over 26,000 beekeepers.
There is a difference between honeybees and solitary bees, like bumblebees, that sort of thing. What is the difference, I suppose?
Well, socially, honeybees have reached a very high level, far above the level of human beings, for example. Solitary bees, as the name implies, they live by themselves, and most of them are very short-lived and only live to reproduce and have the eggs and larvae and so on ready for the next year. But honeybees are continuous, and they survive through the winter, and their laying machine continues from year to year.
And Bob, how easy is it to take up beekeeping? I know it's sort of more and more people are taking up the hobby, but how easy is it to?
It's fairly easy. It's fairly expensive as well, but we would always advocate the potential beekeeper going to a club apiary and trying or manipulating the bees there under supervision, because they might find out the bees are not for them or they're not for bees. There was a fad a good few years ago now where people decided to keep bees and chickens to save the universe, but they suddenly found out that chickens were 365 days a year, and bees you get stings from, so that's why we advocate them going to a club. The cost can be a couple of £300 to start off with.
And in terms of what could happen if bees were to potentially become extinct, what would be the repercussions for them?
Forget the old saw about we'd all be dead in 4 years. Anything we have on a plate with colour on is because the bees have pollinated those plants. So carrots, leeks, anything like that. So we'd have to live on wind-pollinated foods, wheat, rice. So we'd be living on porridge and noodles and precious little else. So it would be a very, very boring life.
Okay, great. Thanks ever so much for that. It seems like there's a lot more to talk about, but that's all we have time for at the moment. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you.
The battle between supermarkets has always been an intense war. The industry is worth hundreds of billions of pounds a year, with various stores desperate for your custom. Waitrose even put in an official complaint this week to Sevenoaks District Council, opposing a new Aldi in the area, saying there were already too many supermarkets in the town. The average weekly family shop is £55, explaining why selling groceries is such big business. But is there enough choice across the county? And where do you shop? We asked customers in Maidstone.
I like to shop in Waitrose mainly because the products are much better, I feel, that the flavour and the price is quite comparable with what you get in Waitrose. But saying that, I do shop around, and there is a local Aldi and a Lidl and Tesco's quite close, so I tend to pop into my local Tesco's for small things, but my main shop is probably Waitrose.
I go to Morrison's at Sutton Road, I go to the Tesco's at Ashford, and also I go to the corner shop on the corner where I live, at Head Corner.
I think Marks and Spencer's is quite expensive. Waitrose, I think, well personally I think that the selection in Sainsbury's is the best. I think for general shopping I believe that that's the best shop to go to.
Tesco's Grow Green, because I like the point system and they usually have what I want, and the girls and the boys are all friendly and helpful.
Sainsbury's and Tesco's, because they're both value for money, I think.
Shoppers in Maidstone there giving their views, but what do you think? Let us know using the hashtag KentSays on social media. Now let's have a look at the weather. It's going to be another clear evening across Kent with lows of 14 in Chatham. Waking up on Friday, you should see sunshine across most of the county with highs of 19 degrees in Chatham and Canterbury. Into the afternoon, and it should get even hotter with temperatures rising to 24 degrees as the sun tries to pierce through the clouds in Canterbury, Ashford and Tunbridge Wells. Coming up after the break, hundreds of hospital staff are leaving their jobs in Kent ahead of Brexit. We speak to our political editor about the latest. Don't go away. And welcome to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. I'm Louisa Britton, your top stories on Thursday the 27th of July. Tunbridge Wells pensions, bosses say multi-million-pound office space and theatre is on.
The debate revealed a divide in the Cabinet, with one councillor describing the theatre's potential benefit for the disabled community, while another called it a vanity project.
Could there be a hosepipe ban on the way? As water levels drop, experts say Kent needs to do more to save water.
It does make it more challenging if you've got, high hot summers. You've got lots of evaporation happening from the water levels here and usage at the same time.
And why Kent's amateur beekeepers could hold the key to sustaining the species.
If there weren't any bees, we wouldn't die, but we would have a very boring diet. It would only be crops that are wind pollinated.
And in sport, I'll be looking ahead to tonight's T20 Blast contest for Kent against Somerset.
In one of the highest attended sessions in decades, Tunbridge Wells Borough councillors have voted to continue with plans for a £72 million development project. It came after officials and members of the public debated a petition which said the work would irreversibly damage one of the town's most beloved parks. Our reporter Cameron Tucker was at Town Hall.
Dozens lined up in the pouring rain outside Tunbridge Wells Town Hall last night. Why? A £72 million facelift could see a state-of-the-art commercial and government office complex and 1,200-seat theatre take centre stage in the town. Voices of opposition have been growing, however, due to the impact such a project would have on the Calverley grounds. 1,000 metres of park space could be cut into as part of the development. Inside Town Hall, the gallery, fortunate enough to get seats, witnessed what some council workers called the most significant and hotly debated issue in recent times. Up first to speak were members of the public, including petition organiser Chris Gedge. Opposition to the proposals from the public and within the council was directed primarily at council leader David Dukes and councillor Tracy Moore, who's previously spoken on KMTV in support of the project.
In fact, there's less than a 2% encroachment to Calverley grounds with this project. The buildings will be built primarily on existing car parks, and we are looking to improve the public space between the two buildings, a wider, more welcoming entrance into Calverley grounds.
The debate revealed a divide in the cabinet, with one councillor describing the theatre's potential benefit for the disabled community, while another called it a vanity project. A motion was eventually carried through with 38 votes to see the current phase of development continue.
Hundreds of EU staff members have left their jobs in hospitals ahead of Brexit. That's according to figures released by 3 trusts across Kent. It comes as throughout the county there are almost 700 unfilled nurse jobs. Joining me is our political editor Paul Francis to discuss the uncertainty surrounding the status of EU nationals in the county. So Paul, what's this story all about?
Well, we all know that hospitals have been facing challenges in recruiting staff, so we decided to try and find out whether Brexit had been a factor in that challenge. And it seems that on a moderate level, it has been a reason why staff have been leaving their jobs at some Kent hospitals, around about 400 in total.
And this is part of a wider recruitment crisis, isn't it?
Yes, it would be unfair to say this is all about Brexit because there's a combination of different factors that are confronting hospitals, and not just the EU nationals who hospitals do rely on, but other staff feeling unwelcome, underpaid, under stress and pressure, and not feeling welcome in their jobs.
And it's not just staff, it's not just nurses, is it? There are other staff.
Yes, these figures cover senior clinicians, hospital managers and admin staff, so it's not just about nurses, although that's obviously the focus.
And what does this mean for the trust and people going there for treatment?
Well, as you see, 700 unfilled vacancies is quite a substantial number across our hospitals, and if they were filled, it might be that people would be facing less time queuing for treatment and for operations.
And what are the trusts doing to try and plug this gap?
Well, a lot of trusts, ironically, are travelling overseas to recruit more nurses. So, for example, we've had Medway Hospital Trust recently going to the Philippines to recruit staff, offered jobs to 200 people. We don't yet know how many of those have taken up that offer, but they are searching across international countries for new recruits.
Great. And Paul on Politics is also the show tomorrow. What are you going to be discussing?
Well, inevitably we'll give this a look too, and we'll be discussing the government's air pollution strategy this week, which is, as you know, talked about scrapping diesel and petrol cars by 2040.
And who are the guests?
We have Tristan Osborne from Labour and Medway Labour Council, and Stuart Jeffrey from the Green Party.
Great. Thanks so much, Paul. Don't forget that you can keep up to date on all things going on in Kent by visiting our website kmtv.co.uk. You can check out some of our latest stories from across Kent, like this video on the new figures that revealed that nearly 40% of cars in Kent fail their annual MOT. Faulty light bulbs and wiper blades are the most common reasons motorists fail their tests.
It's a busy day at Auto Trend Motor Services on Beacon Road. Mechanics and MOT examiners go through the checklist to ensure locals' vehicles are spick and span. As the DVSA statistics show, there was some 10 million MOT failures across the county between May 31st, 2016 and the same date this year. Wayne Cook isn't too surprised by the numbers.
I think that's about right. There's a lot of cars, lease cars, which no one checks. Bulbs, wiper blades, washers, anything like that can fail, and that adds up to the failure rate.
The list of reasons for failures is extensive and varied, as Wayne points out.
If we can't read the number plate, then it would fail on the test. Chassis plates are missing, anything like, even a spare tyre. A lot of cars have the tyre save tyre, which you put it on, it's road legal, but if it comes in with a test with it on, it fails.
With that in mind, Wayne agrees to give one of our KMTV cars a brief look over. It's my first MOT actually, albeit however brief it is. Wayne, what's the first thing we're going to have a look at then?
Well, we're going to look at the tyres. Make sure there's no bulges on the outside of the walls. Make sure all the wheel nuts are done up. Splits. And then we get a tyre depth gauge and we measure the centre 3/4 of the tyre. And this tyre is on 4mm.
So that's okay?
That's okay, yes. But when we're under the bonnet, we'll be checking the fluid levels, the brake fluid level, the oil, make sure the battery's all secure and all bolted down, all suspension parts and steering parts, whatever we can see underneath there.
And finally, onto the dashboard.
Right, we'll be checking all steering wheel, all the light circuits. We will turn all the lights on, make sure it's all secure, all the lights, turning the ignition on, seeing if all the lights on the dash come on and then go out. I will check the washers, wipers and horn, check all the windscreen and then go from there. I see that you have a little spanner light on, which indicates that you need to go and see a garage.
It's clear from the simple checks that it's easy to ensure your vehicle passes its MOT.
If you look after your car will look after you. Like the saying is, yes, and you would get a pass nearly every year if you looked after it.
Cameron Tucker, KMTV, Chatham.
The British film industry is boosting the UK's economy. That's according to figures released by the Office for National Statistics this week. It found that film production's experiencing a boom at the moment and plays a significant role in the UK's growth. Joining me now is Nigel Crisp from the Chatham Historic Dockyard, where several blockbuster films have been shot. So Nigel, how important do you think cinema is for the UK's economy?
Well, clearly from the news this week, it's very important. I think the thing to remember is it's not just the money at the box office that's important, but the production as well, the production of the various movies, the money they spend, the money they spend in the local community when they're filming as well. So it's obviously very important.
And obviously the Dockyard's been involved with quite a few massive films. What are some of the top ones?
It's hard to pick a top one. Les Mis was obviously a very big film, and Man from U.N.C.L.E., another big one, both the Sherlock Holmes films. So it's hard to pick a top one. And we've had some very smaller films budget-wise, but very interesting from production point of view. So it's hard to pick a top one really.
And does that also boost the local economy as well, sort of in Chatham, in Medway as well?
Yeah, very much so, very much so. The crews are staying in local hotels, they're going out in the evening, spending money in local restaurants and pubs, and also employing local contractors and some local staff. So it's very important, the investment they're bringing to the local area.
I suppose that also helps with tourism in the area as well. Do you get lots of people coming to the Dockyard because of films that have been shot there?
We do. It's one of the things we promote, especially Call the Midwife. Call the Midwife has shot Series 7 with us this year, and we promote that as do the Call the Midwife cream teas, Call the Midwife tours, so it's very important to bring people in after the filming's finished.
And how much work goes into it? I suppose obviously you've got that main alleyway in the Dockyard, but there's a lot about sort of making the sets around it as well. How much work goes into it?
A lot of work. The production designers obviously come down and see the premises, and then they decide what they're going to build in conjunction with the producers and directors. And it's very easy for them to make it look different, even though it's one street. looks the same to us all the time, but just differently dressed, different set directions, and it looks totally different.
And it must be quite difficult keeping away. I mean, people away. I mean, from seeing, I suppose it's filmed in secret at that point.
Yeah, some productions are better than others. Some are quite happy to share it with people who come down there, and others are very secretive, so just really knowing what production you got in and then dealing with it from there.
And do you have any big stars heading there in the future, sort of anytime soon?
We're talking to a couple of film companies at the moment, can't say too much, but hopefully later on this year we've got a couple more coming down to produce some nice big films.
And just one last question, so why should we come to the dockyard this summer holiday? What's there to be
Oh,
seen?
there's so many reasons to come to the dockyard. Most preserved dockyard from the age of sail. 3 ships that you actually get on and explore, actually get on a real submarine, lots of kids activities, lots of family activities. It's just the place to be this summer.
Great, lots of stuff happening there. Thanks a lot for joining me. When we come back, a turf war's kicked off in Sevenoaks between Aldi and Waitrose. Find out what attracts people to discount supermarkets after the break.
Yeah, I shop in Aldi just because I'm a student and it's a lot cheaper and you get good quality things for the price that you pay.
Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight live on KMTV. In case you missed it, a £73 million development in Tunbridge Wells will go ahead.
The debate revealed a divide in the Cabinet, with one councillor describing the theatre's potential benefit for the disabled community, while another called it a vanity project.
Worrying water levels, experts say Kent needs to do more to save water.
It does make it more challenging if you've got, high hot summers. You've got lots of evaporation happening from the water levels here and usage at the same time.
And Kent's amateur beekeepers are on a mission to rescue the species.
If there weren't any bees, we wouldn't die, but we would have a very boring diet. It would only be crops that are wind pollinated.
Time now for your pick of the papers with a look at what's making the news in print, online and radio across Kent. I caught up with KM reporter Poppy Jeffrey earlier today and she started off by telling me about a redevelopment project in Sittingbourne.
Okay, so the first story has been going on for ages. It's the regeneration of Sittingbourne Town Centre. Now, this is something that's been going on for probably 10 years. Residents really, really want it. So basically, they're going to be knocking down the middle of the town centre in Sittingbourne, building an 8-screen cinema, loads of restaurants including Pizza Express and Wildwood, like they have in Maidstone, and basically revamping the whole lot. But the main roadworks are due to kick off on Monday, which is going to cause absolute hell for lots of people travelling around the town centre. I mean, there's gridlock as it is at the moment, and it's going to turn into people having to be diverted round the station. But I mean, overall the message for residents there is just to kind of roll with it, keep going, don't panic, because it's going to be worth it in the end.
But 6 months is quite a long period of time though, isn't it, for people?
Yeah, it is quite a long period of time, but we've already started with some roadworks nearby in Milton Road, which takes people around to the station. And I mean, people expected it to be worse than it is at the moment, but I mean, we don't really know how this is going to plan out. It's just keep going and see how it all goes in the end.
But I suppose in the end it will be worth it.
It's going to be so worth it. There's what the plans that we've seen so far is a massive cinema, travel lodge. It sounds like it's going to be really, really beneficial for the town and bring in lots of new trade, lots of people wanting to go for tourism and reasons like that. And I mean, it's going to really revamp a city that hasn't seen a lot of change in quite a while.
Great, so that sounds like good news, but quite far ahead in the future.
Yeah.
What about your second story?
Second story that we've had recently is this guy called Ken Rolls. He's made a documentary about the SS Montgomery. Now, this is a Second World War boat that actually shipwrecked now off the coast of Sheerness. It sank on August 20th, 1944, and basically it had about 1,400 tons of explosives on it. So obviously, if it actually exploded, it would make an absolute mess. And we're really hoping it doesn't. It doesn't seem like it's going to, so we'll be fine. But he's made this documentary on the boat, talking about kind of the acts of the captain to make sure no one goes near it, and kind of and reconstructed lots of stuff using footage from its sister ship, which is actually from San Francisco, and it looks really, really good. It's called A Disaster Waiting to Happen, and it was previewed last Thursday in Sittingbourne. And it kind of just shows lots of things that we haven't seen before, and it looks really, really promising. It's actually been sent to the BBC, which is quite interesting, and they're having a look at it to see if they want to broadcast it. And hopefully they will, really. That'd be absolutely great.
And can people actually go see it at all at the moment?
They've already done a preview, but I'm not sure as to when people will be able to see it like publicly, because obviously it sounds like they're waiting for the BBC on that one.
Great. And your last story is about a young boy raising money for a charity, isn't it?
Yes. So this is a story of an 8-year-old boy. So his name's Jaden Beckwith, and that's his sister Ava. Now she's only 5, and she was diagnosed with diabetes type 1. And obviously he was so touched by this and wanted to help her and other people in the situation. So he started raising money for Diabetes UK, and so far has raised more than £3,000. It's through kind of everything from fun runs to pyjama parties and things like that. So it sounds like he's been having an absolutely brilliant time doing it as well.
Great, and so I suppose he's helping lots of people through that. What have people been saying about it?
People have been just kind of bowled over by kind of his generosity, and especially for someone so young, it's such a big thing to be taking on that much responsibility. He's actually been recognised by Diabetes UK as well. He's received a UK Inspire Award as one of the young people.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Poppy. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
A reminder, you can stay up to date with all the news, sport and weather from right across Kent whenever and wherever you are by clicking on kmtv.co.uk. You'll find breaking news, local features, your county entertainment guide, plus the latest travel news. With a look ahead to this evening's cricket, here's Keelan with the sport. So Keelan, it's a big game for Kent cricketers tonight. What's happening?
Yeah, they're taking on Somerset in the T20 Blast, and it's almost a must-win game for Kent. They've not won in their last 3 in the competition, which means they sit 7th out of 9, and you need to get into the top 4 if you want to progress into the quarter-finals. Somerset are 2 places above them, I should say, in the table, and just a point above them after they had 2 games rained off. So it will be an interesting game between the 2 sides, and Somerset generally Kent have got a pretty good record against them, so they'll be hoping to get back to winning ways, and in front of a home crowd in Canterbury, every chance they can do so.
And what are the key players? Who are the key players to look out on the Somerset team?
Well, Somerset haven't brought in too many overseas players, but they followed Kent in the fact that they've brought in a very key New Zealand player. You can see here, this is Jimmy Neesham, who plays for Kent, and he hit a 50 in the last game against Sussex, and he was very crucial. But for Somerset, they've brought in Corey Anderson, big hitting. He can clear the ropes very, very easily, so he's a big player for them. And more domestically, someone like Peter Trigo, who's a bit like the Darren Stevens almost of Somerset. He'll be a crucial player. To football now, and Maidstone United's defensive issues have been complicated further by an injury to Magnus Okengay, with the new season just a little more than a week away. The defender missed both of the Stones friendlies this week with a swollen knee after falling awkwardly in training, and he's now a doubt for next Saturday's curtain raiser against promoted Maidenhead. It means that Kevin Locko is currently Maidstone's only fit centre-half. Manager Jay Saunders has been after another defender all summer and remains in talks with Football League clubs about a possible loan signing. Down 1 division in the National League South, and Tony Burnham insists there's no injury crisis at Dartford despite the cancellation of Tuesday's game against Bromley. The Darts were due to host the National League side in their penultimate pre-season friendly, but pulled out the day before. Dwana Foriaki-Ampong, Andy Pugh and Mark Oniyema all missed the 1-1 draw with Cambridge United on Saturday, while Keaton Wood limped off during the second half. Dartford's next pre-season game is against Thamesmead on Saturday. Wales manager Chris Coleman was in Gillingham this morning. The former Fulham and Coventry boss was at the Players Elite Academy as a guest of Welsh international Andrew Crofts. Crofts, alongside Sheffield Wednesday winger George Boyd, Newcastle goalkeeper Rob Elliott and Charlton vice-captain Chris Solly, created the academy to provide coaching to children aged 5 to 16. Coleman, who famously reached the semi-finals of Euro 2016 with Wales, gave a chat to the youngsters at a summer session before watching them play. He believes the values this academy teaches sets it aside from others across the country.
Teaching them good things, good manners, and being good young people, and that's just as important. So I think that's what this soccer school will be a little bit different to some others. It's not just about on the pitch. He's looking to making sure that they do the right things. We often get carried away a little bit on the field about football. It's obviously it's the biggest sport in the world and everybody loves it. Sometimes we get a bit carried away and we forget about the other things, more important things about being good young people. And I think Andy wants to concentrate on that also. So I think that's a good thing.
And in rowing, Charing's Freddie Allenson is in Belgium this weekend competing for Great Britain at the Coupe de la Jeunesse. The 18-year-old has just finished his A-levels at the King's School in Canterbury and will now compete in the fours at Hayeswinkle. Last year he represented Kings in the eights at Henley and won the British Championships in a pair with schoolmate Harry Nichols. Allenson and Nichols also won gold for England at the Home Nationals International Regatta in Cardiff last July. That's all your sport for now. I'll have more at the same time tomorrow.
Now let's have a look at the weather. It's going to be another clear evening across Kent with lows of 14 in Chatham. Waking up on Friday, you should see sunshine across most of the county with highs of 19 degrees in Chatham and Canterbury into the afternoon, and it should get even hotter with temperatures rising to 24 degrees as the sun tries to pierce through the clouds in Canterbury, Ashford and Tunbridge Wells. Back now to the Sevenoaks supermarket war between two rival chains. Waitrose hit out at discount store Aldi for planning to build a new 1,500 square metre shop at the Hayward's car park dealership in Otford Road. The town already has a Sainsbury's, Tesco Metro, Lidl and a Marks & Spencer food hall. Aldi's already been popular in other parts of the county, so we asked shoppers in Maidstone what attracts them to the store.
I shop in Lidl's because I like their prices. And I think they've really come up with regards to quality of their goods. My husband likes their wine, and I find all their fresh meat and stuff now it's good. They've rearranged it all from shelves into proper cabinets now, which is much nicer.
We go to Lidl's very often. The prices are very good. They have top brands in there, and the prices are very good.
Yeah, I shop in Aldi just because I'm a student, and it's a lot cheaper and you get good quality things for the price that you pay.
I've shopped in Lidl and Aldi before. I think if a choice I'll go for Aldi, but the reason for it is just cheaper prices, I guess. I don't usually go there. I go to Tesco mostly.
My main shop in Lidl because it's cheaper. The product, especially like the fruit, fresh fruit and veg, actually lasts a hell of a lot longer. And I believe that they actually source their products locally as well, so there's less food miles on there.
Well, mostly we shop in Aldi because it's near and it's easy parking for us, so basically that's why we shop at Aldi's.
And finally, it must be a beautiful spectacle to see the Northern Lights dancing in the sky from the ground. But what about 250 miles from the Earth? Astronaut Jack Fisher tweeted this stunning time-lapse video of the lights. He described it as a burrito of awesomeness as the International Space Station travelled at more than 17,000 miles per hour. Now, you've been watching Kent Tonight live on KMTV. There's more news made just across the county tonight. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.